It's the beach meets the streets with Rocco Pendola. We are not at the beach today, but we're just 2 blocks away in Santa Monica at the headquarters of Demand Media. And we're with the founder, chairman and CEO, Richard Rosenblatt. We got to do this, though, off the top. Springsteen has to play Born to Run and Thunder Road every night, so you've got to talk about MySpace, because that's quite a story, one of the many things you're known for.
I've been involved in the web for a long time, since actually October of 1994. Worked on a number of different web companies and got a phone call in about January of 2004. And a gentleman named Rupert Brewer, who was then the president, called me and said, we've got this great company. It's called eUniverse. It's gone through some challenges, in fact, a lot of challenges. It just had an accounting restatement. It was just delisted from NASDAQ. But we've got a lot of really neat things happening with viral emails and commerce and traffic. You should come in and take a look at the company. So I came in, I accepted the job to become CEO of what was then called eUniverse, which we changed the name to Intermix Media. A few days after starting, these 3 guys came in, brilliant entrepreneurs, Josh Berman, Krista Wolf, and Tom Anderson, and they said, hey, we've got this company, it's called MySpace, this little website. It just got started, it's in beta, we haven't had a lot of focus on it from the company, what do you think? So just because of the prior companies I'd worked on, I really believed it was time for this new type of media platform where users created all their own content, users sent it around to their friends, and all you had to do was sell the ads. And that was kind of the simplistic way that I thought MySpace made sense. The company was going through a lot of changes, had a lot of things going on, but we decided to focus almost all of our resources just on MySpace. And you know, about a year later, it got to over 1 billion page views a day. And then because of a bunch of different challenges, a bunch of capital requirements, we decided to sell it to Corp, which was, about a year and a half after.
When you did the deal, were you in a room with Rupert Murdoch? Or is there somebody else that, does he send somebody else in? Like, where is he involved in all of this, at the highest level?
Yeah, that's a crazy story that I don't think will ever happen, at least in my career again. They'd been looking at it for a little while. A gentleman named Ross Levinson, which you probably know, was running Fox Sports. He was just asked to be put in charge of the Internet at News Corp. He called me and said, we've been talking for a couple weeks. Rupert Murdoch wants to see you. Come down now.
Wow.
That was about the most nervous I could ever imagine being. Went down to the studio. Ross walked me up the back stairs. I was alone. I didn't bring any lawyers or bankers. It didn't even cross my mind, which is crazy now in hindsight. Walked in the room, and it was Rupert, Peter Chern, and Ross. And it's as casual as you can believe. Rupert Murdoch stood up, and I didn't know what to say, and he said, hey, I hear you built this great company. Tell me about it. And I took him through, Intermix Media and particularly MySpace, and I made it very simple for him. I said, Mr. Murdoch, this is one of the greatest media platforms because, again, users create their own content, users distribute it among themselves, and all you need to do is sell the ads. Literally after 20 minutes, he stood up, shook my hand, we agreed on $12 a share, which was almost double of what the current price was, and 4 or 5 days later, we closed the deal.
Wow.
It was an unbelievable experience, one that I will never forget. The experiences at MySpace taught me that there was this massive audience that wanted content. The problem with MySpace, and I still think the problem with social networks today, is most of the content you make is only for your small group of friends. And it's typically not that useful to a broader audience. So knowing that, when starting Demand Media, we looked around and said, there's no place where people are creating quality content at scale that answers the questions that people actually want on the web. Right? And using data, and it wasn't only search data, it's data from search, social, direct traffic, you can actually predict that a certain amount of people have a certain amount of questions and that advertisers are willing to pay a certain dollar for it. Through a bunch of algorithms, a lot of crunching of data, you could then predict how profitable each piece of content will be. You then need to create a platform that allows you to do it at those costs, and you need to scale it. And that's what we did. And from the very beginning, the whole idea of Demand Media, when we bought eHow, so we started the company with eHow, was about knowledge. And we still continue to try and do that today. We continue to get better and better at what type of content the consumer wants and how to make the highest quality content we can at scale.
You're a prolific tweeter also. Almost as prolific as Jim Cramer. I mentioned to Cramer that we were doing, he says, Richard's terrific. I love Richard.
Oh, good.
Those were his words. But you tweet pertinent stuff. And one of the things that was interesting, you said the only subscription service I pay for every month is Spotify.
When I actually used Spotify and saw the depth of the library, the way in which it suggested music, the way in which you could download the music onto your iPhone and use it when you're not even connected. There was just enough features that made it just enough that you're willing to pay for it, as compared to actually getting most of the same songs for free. And I think the ecosystem of the internet is finally evolving to that. In fact, today, coincidentally, we're announcing the acquisition of a company called CreativeBug, which is our first move into the paid content space. On our last conference call, I talked a little bit about how we've got this very large network, 125 million people a month that visit us. They're very focused on certain things because we know from all the data what they're there for. And we have a large audience of do-it-yourself, probably through eHow, the largest in the world. The market is now ready for even higher quality content with very detailed e-learning that people are willing to pay for. And we've been testing this for a while, and we really jumped into it today by purchasing CreativeBug. So I think there's a number of factors that made me want to pay for Spotify, and now the factors are there for mostly do-it-yourself type of content. And we're really excited about the acquisition. The type of content we create, when people really understand it, it makes sense. A third of all Americans visit our websites every month. So they're voting. We don't make stuff that the consumer has not requested through the actions they've taken prior. And that's it. That's the only stuff we make. We don't try and make hits.
Who will stand the test of time? I compare Twitter to the newspaper. They're a modern-day newspaper. I think they're generational. I think they'll be around 40 years from now. They'll probably be different than they are today, but they'll be around. I think Facebook will be, probably in a different form. Aside from them, who do you think the survivors are 10, 15, 20 years down the road?
I think there's going to be a lot of survivors, and there'll be a lot of new companies. Amazon.com is amazing, right? That company is a great company, continues to grow, continues to evolve. You mentioned Twitter, one of my absolute favorite companies. I still think Facebook, as a different platform, will be around. I don't know why people are counting out Apple. They invented an entire new market that everybody else is part of. They too need to evolve, right? Next quarter, they'll probably come out with something better, or the quarter after that. So I think you'll see a lot of these large companies that have good management just continue to get better and better.
Where'd you get your first dollars, your first money to start a company?
Well, so the first dollars came from my first company, which I started during college, and I funded that myself, just bootstrapped it. That company we turned into iMall, which became the first online shopping mall. So I hadn't raised any outside capital at that point. When iMall had some challenges, I was the founder, and I was then asked to become CEO early, 1996, and it was a publicly traded company, and I'd never run a public company. I went to a gentleman that was a former banker, and he was an individual investor, and I pitched him on this crazy concept, which was there was going to be this new type of platform where small businesses were going to actually build their own websites and sell stuff online. Amazon had just got started, Netscape had just gone public, Yahoo was tiny, and he said, all right, I think it makes sense, you've worked hard, your company had some challenges, you came back, you're still standing, I think you'll be an okay CEO, we'll see, really, here's $250,000. And he gave me my first $250,000, which was, a lot of money back then, still a lot of money now. And he then introduced me to some bankers in New York, and I went on my very first roadshow, and these were crazy times, and I was able to raise $20 million, and just had to turn iMall around. It was tough. We had to lay off a lot of people, close a lot of offices, but we're fortunate enough to have the next investment be over $10 million from First Data Corp. So instead of individual investors, it was a real professional corporation saying, hey, we want to integrate our processing into your small stores. And then after that, we were able to sell the company very quickly after that. So, once you gain that momentum, it's fantastic. Getting that momentum started is really hard. I've been fortunate enough to raise a lot of money, but I hate it. I'm not comfortable doing it, and the responsibility once you have somebody's money, it's really hard. It is really difficult to think about every single day, and that's why I think about every one of our shareholders. That if they're buying our stock, it's my responsibility for them to get a return on capital. That is my job.
I hate buzzwords, but work-life balance. Marissa Mayer versus Sheryl Sandberg. It's dichotomy. We need to pit them against one another instead of saying that they're both greats, which is the reality. But I think there is something to work-life balance. I just realized, I got to get back on the bike, start playing guitar, do some other stuff, right? You're a busy guy. You're all over the place. You're running a huge company. How do you strike the balance?
You need to schedule yourself, right? Think about it. You're scheduled all day long at work, right? So it sounds silly, you don't want your family to know you're scheduling them, but every Saturday morning, my daughter and I, we go early, 7 a.m. for breakfast, then we go do something together. We're back by 9, I then, go to my son's lacrosse games on Saturday, and I see my other son golf, right? My wife and I get as much time as we can on weekends, or if I'm out on business, she comes along, right? So you've got to spend as much time thinking about that as you do about work. Or, if your family's not supportive of your work, you won't make it. So it literally is just as important. And that's taken me a lot of companies to realize that. And it's hard. It's probably the hardest challenge, is to figure out a way to balance everything.
Richard Rosenblatt, the chairman, CEO, co-founder of Demand Media. It's as close as I'm going to get to an exclusive. So we appreciate that you sit down and do a one-on-one with us. It was a great time, and thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed it.